everyone, I'm Summer and this is Mulder. He is a rough-scaled python produced by Ralph Polinsky. I got him back in the fall and I did an unboxing video. So I wanted to give an update on how he's been doing, talk a little bit about the species because they're so interesting, and then I'm actually going to be putting him into a new enclosure that I have set up for him. So that's gonna be fun to watch him explore the new environment. So for those who are unfamiliar with rough-scaled pythons, they are a medium-sized, semi-arboreal species from Australia. They are Morelia carinata, so they're in the same genus as carpet pythons, Brettles pythons, and their most close relation, the green tree python, which is considered a sister species to them. They come from a really remote range. So there's this small little patch of monsoonal rainforest in the northwestern portion of the Kimberley district in Western Australia. And that is really the only place they are found. There has been a sighting possibly on an island kind of off the coast, but either way, just a very remote area and a small area that they're found in. And it's thought that they have possibly the most limited range of any python species in the world. And because they're from such an isolated area, they actually weren't even described until 1976, which is really not that long ago in terms of the history of ever. And kind of along those same lines, they're also thought to be one of the rarest python species in the world. Only 13 specimens have ever been observed in the wild. Luckily, there was a sort of mission taken on by John Weigel in the 90s and early 2000s, and they did quite a few expeditions, I think 17 or something, to the area that they're from to try to find some to get them into captivity. And they were successful, so thanks to that, we now are able to have them in captivity, which is just awesome because they are a super cool species. So because they're in this really remote area, kind of isolated from everything else, they have developed some really unique adaptations that set them apart from any other python species. One is the rough scales. So their scales are actually keeled, and that means that they have this ridge along the middle of the scale that creates a rough bumpiness to it. So you might think of a rattlesnake or a gopher snake or something like that. They have keeled scales as well, but no other python does. They're the only python in the world that has keeled scales. And it's thought that maybe that is for camouflage or maybe to grasp onto the rocks better, to anchor themselves, because they are commonly found, well, I shouldn't say commonly, but they have been found on rocky escarpment type things, outcroppings. They actually get the nickname the rock chondro because they're very similar in appearance and behavior to green tree pythons. They just have adapted to be living on rocks instead of the trees. Another really cool feature about them that is unique is that they have the longest anterior maxillary teeth of any python species. So a lot of people will talk about how long green tree python teeth are. These guys are longer. And that's probably to help them grasp onto prey. There is a specific type of rodent, the rock rat, I think, that has actually adapted and evolved alongside them to have skin that actually will come off when it's grabbed onto and they need to flee. So it's thought that perhaps their teeth are so long so that they're able to puncture through that layer that's able to come off so that the prey can't escape. It's really interesting. Like I said, they're just such a cool species with so many little weird facts and tidbits about them. Also really unique is this threat display that they do. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like a cottonmouth. That's the closest thing I can think of, but they'll open their mouth and they're able to spread apart the two sides of their lower jaw to make kind of this big square shape. And they just show you all these giant teeth that they have. Unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, I've never seen mine do it because you obviously see he's really chill, but it's crazy, and maybe one day I'll see it if I catch him at the wrong time when he's not exactly happy to see me. I don't know. But it's so cool, and again, another just unique feature about them. Another really neat thing about them is their head scalation. They have this really large frontal scale right on the top of their head that is, I mean, it's huge. It's like almost the size of their eyes. So it looks like they have like a body plate of armor on them, and it's just so cool looking. Their heads in general are also just shaped kind of like a dragon. They have that chondro green tree python kind of shape to them, but almost even more so. Another thing about their face that's really cool is their eyes. They have these huge steely blue-gray eyes they're just gorgeous. So a few other interesting things are that they do change colors. So some other pythons will do this as well. They'll look a little different at different times of the day, or right after they've eaten, or if it's warmer or cooler, and they'll kind of fire up and fire down. But these guys do it to a much greater degree, and they also can do it like in a second flat. So I've never actually seen it. I've seen a little bit, like I've seen him be a little bit lighter, but they apparently are able to get super light if they wanted to. And then behaviorally, something that's interesting about them is that it hasn't been observed for males to combat. So with pretty much all other species of the Moralia genus, if two males get put together, adult breeding age mature males, they will combat. They will fight to try to have one overpower the other and basically raise their head higher and kind of subdue the other male to get breeding rights to a female. And it hasn't been observed that they do that in this species. So they've actually been able to keep males together without any issues, which is just another thing that's interesting and unique about them. Possibly because of how small the population is and how limited the range is, they have to overlap with other males. I'm not really sure. Again, most of what we know about their natural history is kind of conjecture because so few have actually been found and observed in the wild. So I kind of just gave you bullet points there, but I hope you understand why I'm so fascinated by these animals and why I think they're such a cool snake. And if you want to learn more about the species, their natural history, their care, the taxonomy, all of that stuff, I recommend checking out The Complete Carpet Python by Nick Mutton and Justin Zoolander, and also a recent episode of Moralia Python Radio on the NPR network that was done by Eric Burke and Owen McIntyre, and they did an episode specifically dedicated to the rough-scaled python where they go into way more detail about the history and the description and all the unique features of this snake. So when I first got Mulder, I got him because I knew that I liked the Moralia genus. I had carpet pythons and Bredl's pythons and I loved them. And also I was just fascinated by all those things that were special about them and set them apart from the rest of the python family. But what I've been really pleasantly surprised by is their behavior. So at least my animal, Mulder, he obviously is really chill, super handleable. But when I first go into his cage, he'll like stick his head out of the hide to be like, what's going on? And then I'll get him out and he'll kind of be a little bit curious and looking around, and then after a while he just chills. And I swear, like one time he like fell asleep on my shoulder and I was like, this is weird. Like my other carpet pythons and Bredl's pythons don't do that. Like maybe a ball python might do that, but he is really chill, really handleable. He's not defensive, but he's a great eater. When I first got him, he was used to being drop fed. So when I would tease the mouse for him, he would just do this really cute, like barely even trying to strike it. He almost just was like opening his mouth and grabbing it like that. Like there was hardly even a strike involved, but now he's on it. He's a great eater, never refused a meal from me. And he also is really smart. So I started trying to train my snakes. I'm good friends with Lori Torini, and if you haven't checked out her channel, I highly recommend it. She is doing some really awesome, I think revolutionary stuff in the snake world with training and behavior and cognition in reptiles. So with her advice, I've been working on starting to target train some of my animals. And after one session where I introduced a target alongside a food item, the very next session when I showed the target, he struck, which isn't actually what you want to happen, but I was impressed because it showed me that already after just one session, he was associating the target with food. He has picked up on the target training faster than any of my other snakes. And he is younger, so that may have something to do with it, but either way, very impressed. Excited to keep working on that and see how far I can go with it with him. All right, so now let's go put him in his new enclosure. So up at the top of the enclosure, I have a UVB Arcadia shade dweller. I have a halogen light for heat, and then I have a sky hide. I've got a second level with a branch, and there's a hide on there so he can have a warm hide. And then I've got a hammock as well for him to climb on and have an additional texture. On the sides, I've got a Mag Naturals shelf as well as a Mag Naturals hide. Then moving down a bit, I have a ladder. It's actually a tub perch from Specialty Enclosure Designs. And if you're interested in these cage elements, I have another video 5 must-have accessories for semi-arboreal snakes, where I talk in a little greater detail about the accessories and why they're good for these types of species and also where you can get them. Anyway, I have this ladder, and then in the back I have some hides that were made by Black Box Cages, who designed the cages as well. I have these smaller Reptile Basics extra small hides placed throughout the enclosure so he can get into a really tight, secure place if he wants it. So moving down even further, I've got a pretty large water dish on the bottom of the cage, and I've got more hides in all the corners as well as a lot of foliage and stuff so that he has a lot of cover and feels secure. Oh, I've also got a humid hide up top there. That's that little Tupperware. It's filled with sphagnum moss. As far as temperatures and humidity go, it's getting about 78 to 81 ambient during the day, depending on how cold my house is. And the hot spot, the basking spot, is about 86 to 88. And then at night, I turn off everything. And so as the cage gradually cools down, eventually it'll get down to the mid 70s. And then in the morning, all the lights turn back on and it starts all over again. So that's pretty much how I'm keeping him. Humidity wise, I try to keep it about 50% just to be safe, but he's got that humid hide if he needs a super high humidity level. All right, well, I'm gonna leave Mulder be and let him get used to his new enclosure, but I hope you enjoyed that video. I'm so excited to be working with that species. They are so cool to me, and he is such an amazing animal, and I just love him so much. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think was the most unique feature of the rough-scaled pythons? Is it their teeth, the keeled scales, just the fact that they're so rare? Let me know in the comments below. And once again, my name is Summer. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.